Good afternoon. July 26, 2021, and we're here for the Public Works Finance Committee meeting, and we have Ann Sabala and Art Becky here with us at the table, as well as Gary Riedner, at least for the next couple months. Anyways, so we're going to start our meeting today, and we have three things on our agenda, and the meeting today is going to end by 4. So let me just say that the first thing we're going to look at is the approval of the July 12th, 2021 Public Works Finance Committee minutes. Anybody have any comments? Look good?
No problems, look good. Let's get rid of number 1 on the agenda.
Okay, we're on it. Nice job there, Taylor. Number 2, lot division at 2209 Shelby Lane. Thank you, Amy. Amy Hendricks.
We're going to share and clicker.
I liked it when we had a screen over there.
Okay.
No,
Gary, is she in your way?
Just fine.
clicker never likes me. There, maybe it went. Clearly has power. Try this again.
Is the switch on the side of the remote on?
Yeah, it did that a couple times.
Oh, battery could be dead.
Do you want me to commandeer from over here?
Yeah, that'd be
Okay.
fine.
All right.
We'll change the batteries next
We'll
time.
just switch on through. Okay. So for your consideration today, we have a lot division for 2209 Shelby Lane. This property is just south of Joseph, accessed currently off of Shelby to the just west is El Cajon, the cul-de-sac. The lot currently is just over 24,000 square feet. Its current zoning is R1. If it were split into 2, as today's proposal is put forth, each lot would be just over 12,000 square feet. One would be accessed off of Holiday, which is currently a dead-end street. The other would be accessed off of Shelby Lane. This is in the low-density residential district, R1, with lot widths at a minimum of 80 feet, lot area a minimum of 9,600 square feet, and flag lots are required to abut a right-of-way by 20 feet, and the flag portion of the lot should be no longer than 150 feet. Here is a survey conducted of the subject property showing that flag lot. There is a utility easement, a 20-foot utility easement that runs on the eastern side of that portion of that lot. Because it meets all of the requirements of the zoning, staff has recommended this lot division for approval with no conditions. I'm happy to take any questions you might have.
Could you go back to the slide that showed the 3 conditions?
Absolutely.
Okay, and the flag portion of the lot is how long?
The flag portion of the lot, zoning standards and fire safety require that the lot, that portion be no longer than 150 feet. As you can see in the survey here, the shorter portion where the flag opens up, it is 125 feet
Okay.
until that portion.
Thank you.
Could you go back to the slide that actually showed where it was being divided and how it was being divided?
Absolutely.
So basically, it extends Holiday Street.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep, that lot will abut that right of way
Okay.
and be accessed at that point.
So on our right side, they will have no access to get to the Shelby.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay.
And where's the access for the southern lot? I know
For
you
the
said,
southern
but-
portion, the lot that's 12,251.
Yep.
So that access is off of Shelby. It'll be that flag portion. It is 20 feet wide to accommodate fire vehicles and a driveway up.
Okay, so if it's coming in on that, that's over the top of the utility easement, isn't it?
Correct.
Is there some kind of agreement with the owner as to if the city has to tear it up to get the underneath, that the owner is responsible for fixing their own driveway?
Right, that's something that's handled as the development is proposed. Engineering will look at that and ensure that there's no portion of the building that's within that public utility easement. And the driveway itself, I believe there's an access agreement saying if they need to access what's underneath to, if there's a,
So is there a hold city harmless clause in there that if the city has to dig up a driveway, that it's not the city that is on the hook to fix it the way it was, if it was made of decorative brick or something like that?
So the city is always responsible for surface restoration if we need to access any of our utility easements. So the utility easement gives us the right to have our underground utilities across the property, but it does not deny the owner the ability to use the property or to do any surfacing or landscaping. So if we have a break that we need to do repair, we are always responsible for that surface restoration work to bring it back to the prior condition. And that's standard for all utility easements.
Yeah, we usually want to we want to make sure people don't put buildings on top of it. We've had some utility easements where we've not allowed people to put plantings on top. The one, I think, going up to Vista Tank, prevented trees from being planted in the utility easement.
I was just curious on how wide that road is, because if they actually have to dig up that road because of some problem underneath it, where the easement is, I guess my concern is does it block the road? And if it blocks the road, where do those people get out? There's no other way to get out except through that road.
So the question is, if we have to service utility, repair and excavate it, yeah, they would, their access would be limited, just like any other construction project. Sometimes we block roads by excavation of utilities, and they may have to park on the street. It may be a condition of the contractor to fill it, plate it to allow access when they're not actively working to that property.
But if you're living there and you can't get out, and there's only one exit to get out of there, how do you get out? And so if they're in the middle of doing it, does that mean they get noticed, they have to go park up on the main street, or what do they do?
We would coordinate with the owner to ensure that they move their vehicle out to Shelby, park on the street while that repair occurs, and then they could walk in, have limited access during that time. Or we'd coordinate with the contractor to ensure that they have to, at the completion of work every day, have to backfill it or plate it to provide access. We run into that condition all the time during construction activities.
Okay,
If I can ask one more question. So Holiday Street is a public right-of-way, correct?
correct.
So there is no cul-de-sac, fire's fine with it being just butted up against the property?
You don't have to do a turnaround unless the street length is over 150 feet, which that is not. When Shelby was platted with the Southgate addition, the extension of Holiday was prohibited based on the lot layout at that time. So it was known Holiday was not going to extend in the future. Given the fact that this would only access one lot at the end of Holiday, the other lots already come off El Cajon, there would be no need for extension of the roadway, and you really could not construct a cul-de-sac with the existing structures where they are now.
Sure. Okay, thank you.
any other questions?
No other questions. The easement issue was explained.
Okay. Do we approve it?
Yes.
Okay, and on consent agenda? Okay. Oh, did you have another one?
So my name's Doug Schumacher.
Okay, Doug, walk up there to this thing.
Or
and-
better yet, come over here to this chair right here.
Whichever one you're more comfortable with.
Never been to the city of Kansas.
Come on up.
So either they would just have to get you on the mic, tell us your name, where you live.
Come sit down.
Just
We
to
have to get
clarify,
you on the
My
microphone.
name's Doug Schumacher. I live at 1004 El Cajon Street. I've owned that property for about 7 years now. So it was kind of handy having the map up there, but
We can pull it
We
back
can
up.
put it
my
back up.
property is bordered by 3 streets. It's a kind of unique piece there. It's by Joseph, El Cajon, and Holiday. And my biggest concern, like I said, is if you do this, and then I
So
don't
where-
really know
Where are
what.
you located? Let's just get yourself located up there for me
right
for a
here.
second.
Yeah, that's my house right there.
Okay.
Okay.
And I've lived there for 7 years, me and my wife. And, there's a few things that I'm concerned about, but, one being if you split this lot that, initially this lot was a Shelby or Cambridge
split line
lot
up
or
there for us.
whatever. It belonged to the subdivision to the top. El Cajon is a pretty quiet little cul-de-sac street. And anytime you add a dwelling, you can figure there's 2 to 3 vehicles per dwelling on average. And my biggest concern is that, and you were questioning that access for that second lot, that, when I see no conditions when you split it, but then my concern is sometime down the road, is somebody gonna come in and ask you, well, can we do this? And figure out how to hook that back one to El Cajon and throw another, so then both those lots would eventually access off El Cajon. And that's number one, my concern, because I've seen a lot. I come from, born and raised in Bozeman, Montana. Been in the Palouse for about 8 years, and you know anything about Bozeman and change in the last 20 years, I've seen a lot of it, and seen a lot of things go through city councils when nobody really pays attention to them, and this being one of them. Like I said, I bought my property because it was a nice, quiet cul-de-sac street, and neither one of these lots initially, like I said, it was developed with the upper subdivision, originally. 1024, the house that is across from me that used to own this lot, it used to originally was a Holiday address, and then they changed it to an El Cajon address. And then they were allowed to build within, I think, 12 feet of the city curb. Somebody granted them access to do that. And those kind of things I see happen, and I'm concerned, like I said, if you do this with no conditions, that somebody's gonna come in here and, because really and truly, you look at the reality of access there. I mean, to this other lot that they want to, on the backside,
The second one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It
doesn't give you much
and
space, though.
it's hard to picture unless you're actually there. I mean, unless you actually, because there's hillside and stuff, and it's gonna be, and then the question of 1024 El Cajon, 1024 El Cajon has been something since I've lived there too. When I moved in, there was 6 trailers and motorhomes parked around the house. Then they sold it, and then in the last 2 years, we regularly had Moscow PD visiting there monthly, because somebody wanted to chop it up into a they framed in like 9 rooms in this house. It's a massive house, and currently it's sitting empty still. So that keeps my concerns going to where is that going to go, if that piece of property and this piece of property, and and I'm not quite wasting your time here, man. I'm just throwing out food for thought. One more thing that happened on El Cajon Street before I moved to there was, I know everybody on the street, and they know me, and the original house, David and Helen that live across from me, they built the first house in 1970 and still live there. And the whole street was R1. Somebody came along in somewhere, from what I understand, in about 2000 or somewhere in there, on Meadowlark Street, and wanted to build some townhouses. That's one street south of us, a cul-de-sac street south. They wanted to build some townhouses. Well, so for whatever reason, I don't even know why you would do it, they changed, and you can see it right there in the blue, they changed the R2
R3.
clear to half of El Cajon Street too. David, he still hasn't even been able, my neighbor really, he's an elderly gentleman, he hasn't really been able to tell me why they did that, I mean.
But the good news is that you are clearly the neighborhood watchdog, and I think that's a compliment to you. And the issue is they can't make any changes with respect to zoning or changes with respect to what is authorized by the code without coming back here. And if they do that, you'd clearly get notice. And so the answer there seems to me that You just gotta keep being the neighborhood watchdog to see what goes on. But at this point, it's hard to put conditions on it that we don't know. We don't know exactly what those would be. You know, you can't change the zoning code. I mean, that seems kind of like we can't really do that. We take the issues when they appear in front of us.
And also relative to the southern lot, the 251 square foot one, accessing El Cajon, I don't think that's feasible given the shape of that lot because there isn't enough space to run a tricycle through that pointy end onto El Cajon. That would mean that they would have to work in agreement with whoever owns that chunk further south to
and-
get through, and so I don't see that as a possibility of happening.
Without some change.
It'd
Without
have
some
to
change.
be a big change.
And then you'd have to get that changed, and I think,
You know, another thing, even the young couple that just went in and built to the access off that 20-foot road that goes in to the west, kind of southwest there, they built in there
Yep.
on R2, a beautiful new R1 home.
Yeah, you can see it from
That was
Heron.
quite a statement there,
You
I
can
think,
see it
too,
from
you
Heron's
know.
hideout. It's
You
quite
know.
well done.
So,
so we hope you get that for the next time, the neighbors that you want.
yeah, you know, there's plenty of other places, like I said, from where I come now. You build and go R2, R4, you can shake your neighbor's hand through their bedroom windows, you know, and I just would hope, and that's my concern. And there is another thing too with my lot, that lot that is gonna access off of Holiday too. I've sent pictures to I'm not the neighborhood watchdog either. I like,
Well, I don't mean that as a bad term at all. Every neighborhood wants somebody that's
but
that's
that
on top
lot
of it.
drains, the whole lot drains onto my lot. I have video pictures of it draining because it's just all natural at this point, and it misses, there's curb and asphalt up to the property line, on Holiday, and sidewalk. My house is the only one that has a sidewalk and curb all the way around there too, but, you know, the water comes down and goes this side of the sidewalk and through my yard and rivers down, you know, and I would hope that if you do grant somebody to access, that is that a condition, that he would establish some kind of curb and gutter
Right.
into his property to.
So when that comes up, you come back to visit us.
I think it's
okay?
part of the
That's-
code already that, one, you have to establish the street frontage there, and two, you can't be letting runoff from your property go off onto somebody else's. So that's, I'm pretty sure, Bill, save me.
So they'll have to collect and convey their stormwater to whatever is the receiving stormwater system that we have in that area. You know, water does flow over land, so if you have a sloped lot that slopes down to an adjacent lot, you're not going to stop that. You cannot collect and concentrate a discharge where it would create damage to the adjacent property. But they'll be required to connect all of the gutters on the roof and the hardscape and collect that to the stormwater conveyance system.
I just also want to tell you, I did not take that term as a watchdog, as a negative term at all. Every neighborhood likes to have somebody who keeps an eye on what's going on. So good, I hope we don't have to see from you again, but if you have another issue, come back and see us.
All right, well, thanks for listening to me.
Sure. Okay.
Got one more.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm
So
sorry.
Thank you. I also own property that, my name is Kate Loyakino, and I'm here with my husband, Jeff. And then on behalf of a couple neighbors, unfortunately, we all couldn't be here today just due to the nature of like during the workday. Our property, Jeff and I's property, is on Cambridge, and so it's the back lot there, essentially 12,251 square foot. The home that's on the most there kind of is bordering that. And I think we just kind of have concerns about property values and the way that this is all structured. If you look at the homes in the neighborhood, they're all kind of a similar size, with a similar size lot, and by cutting this down, we're cutting down the size of the lots, and then usually that would mean smaller homes, and I think that it has an effect on all of our property values, which is a concern to me, being a young Moscow citizen investing in a home. So that's that's concerning to me. Also, what you really can't see from this picture is the road that they're proposing there come up Shelby. That is a pretty steep, significant drop off into that lower thing. I mean, I'm not a landscape engineer, I'm not a builder, so I'm sure there's ways to bring tons and tons of dirt in there to make it work. But when you're talking about access and all of bringing the city materials to the back, that's like a serious undertaking. This property has major drainage issues. I feel for you talking into your home that you were speaking about, because I can see how that would be happening. It's essentially a big hole that this is all going into. So I think that's a concern when I see it as well. I've also heard that they're going to seek to go for multifamily next, which I realize is not part of this conversation here, but if they are planning next to try to change the zoning, then that, I would like to just say it here. I know they have to come again, so I'll come again and argue that. And then the property at the end of El Cajon that also is on Cambridge, you can see there that there's nothing developed, and that's also for sale. So there is an opportunity here to actually connect all the lots and perhaps go after something different as well. So there would be opportunity to join the back 12,251 square foot with the larger property that's for sale off Cambridge. I have heard, but I have not been able to find if this is true or not, that at one point the people have access off Cambridge to that empty lot. They're asked for access off El Cajon, but were denied. But I'm not sure if that's true, and I haven't been able to see. But I think there's a lot going on here. My biggest concern is property value and what would happen. I'm happy to have new neighbors build. I know that property is hard and it's find a hard space, but I don't see why there needs to be two lots. I think it really changes the face of the neighborhood. And so forth. So I might have missed some pieces. I think Marie is. Yeah.
If you want to speak, you can come up and sit
In
in
her
the mic.
property. Yeah, her property is part of the easement there that we're talking about. She's on Shelby there. So access to that back property is really problematic if you're able to go look at it. I don't know how someone could possibly get back there consistently and safely. It's a steep, steep hill that, I don't know. There's a little road there, but it's certainly not 20 feet wide at its current state, so.
So Amy or Bill, do we have any issues there with respect to the width of that road or the drainage or the incline? Does it conform with what we need it conform with?
Thank you.
We don't have a design that has been brought forward to the city for review. I think it certainly is feasible to construct an access way there, and it doesn't have to be 20 feet wide. The city code requires that there's 20 feet of property that abuts the public street, but driveways can be as narrow as 12 feet for construction underneath the fire code. So they would have room to do retainage if necessary to grade a access drive in there. Would not have to occupy the full 20 feet in width. That's just a city code requirement for the lot frontage on a public street. And all storm drainage, as I mentioned before, will have to be collected and conveyed to the city's stormwater system.
This came up, so I wanted to ask you while you're at the podium. Can you talk to the ability to build multifamily in R1 or R2, which is the existing zone, and the adjacent zone if it was to be rezoned?
Correct. R1 and R2 are both single-family only zoning districts, and that would not be approved to be rezoned for multifamily development.
Yeah, so that's not possible there. Mm-hmm.
If I may, too, I guess the shape of the lot split, when you have different subdivisions come together, typically there are pieces of property that don't fit well. And typically we get people coming in saying, can I do a lot split? Is there some way I can make a buildable lot out of this? The R3 or R1, I believe, is 9,600 square feet minimum lot size. So both of these exceed that by quite a bit. There wouldn't be another lot split allowed in either of these lots because then you'd be below the minimum lot size. So the size of the home really is up to the homeowner. As long as it is a single-family dwelling and it meets the zoning requirements, it is up to whoever is building the home.
Anyone else like to speak? Okay. Let's go back to this. Do you approve it?
I
concerns?
still think it meets the legal requirements for a lot split, and whether somebody
You or
wants...
don't believe it does?
I do.
Okay, I thought you said you didn't.
And whether or not somebody can design a home that will occupy the lot and wants to deal with definitely a steep driveway, that's up to them. But I don't see any legal foundation for denying the application.
Ann?
Yeah, I recommend approval as well, and I was just gonna mention that, I don't know the exact square footage of the other lots, but looking at it split, it actually looks like two more comparable lots to what surrounds it than one really large lot. But yeah, I mean, I think that we should have, I appreciate everybody coming and talking today too, and I think this should go on the, main agenda as opposed to consent, just because we've had quite a bit of discussion today.
Okay, so that means it will be on the agenda for August 2nd, potentially. There's a lot on the agenda that day, but,
There's going to be a lot on the agenda.
We have 3 public hearings that day.
oh, so it'll probably be on the subsequent one.
We'll have to take a look at the calendar and
Yeah.
see what we come up
But it will
with.
come back up, and so just watch the calendar and come back in and talk about it. But I do think that based on people's concerns, that it should go to the full council. But thank you. Thank you all for coming. I think that wraps us up for the, can we adjourn?
No, we
One
are,
more.
Bob Bouvel is here,
Oh, how did I miss
talking
that
about
date? Oh, that's that one right there.
some public
Rural water
utilities.
extension.
I didn't mean to knock you out there, buddy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Bob Bouvel, and I am here to talk to you today about the South US 95 sewer water extension.
Bob, could you pull the microphone closer to you?
Is that better?
Perfect, thank you.
So just to give everybody an idea of where where the project is going to be, this is US 95 heading south out of town, and the project location is here circled in red. Just to kind of give you an overview of what we're planning on building here. This is an aerial view of the area that the project is going to be in. I've got a couple of colored lines there that show the green line would be where the new sanitary sewer is going to would be built, and the blue line shows where the new water lines would be built. And also overlaid on this photo is the proposed alignment of the new highway project heading south out of town. And then a couple other overview items. This project would build about 1,950 feet of sanitary sewer and about 950 feet of new water main.
Can I just ask you a question when you're in the middle of that slide? Just
Yeah.
go back one. Those things that kind of look like bushes and they kind of go down and then they go across, kind of like a backbending L. So what was that? Can you identify what that was again?
So you're talking about in this area
Yes.
here. Those are some existing trees that
Oh,
were planted
okay.
along the that existing farmhouse owned by the Clyde family.
Thank you.
Just a little bit more background information. Extending utilities south of the South Fork of the Palouse River has been kind of on the radar for a little bit, for a little while, mostly for opening that area up to feasible development. The creek crossing and the connection into the lift station down there. It kind of creates a little bit of a problem for development. Our lift station is currently right here, and so what that does is that's a big tank that kind of collects sewage down in that south area of town and pumps it up the highway and into the to the intersection of Steiner and US 95. In 2018, the construction dates for the ITD Thorn Creek project were set, and so that kind of put us on notice that if we wanted to get sewer and water built out underneath that highway project, that we needed to kind of get on that. And the project that we're planning would utilize the new the new and the existing US 95 right-of-way. So coordination between us and ITD was pretty important. And if we were able to get our utilities built prior to the ITD project, it would ultimately save us quite a bit of money in restoration cost and possibly right-of-way purchasing. And I'm not sure if it was COVID related, but the ITD project was then at some point got delayed an extra year, so we delayed our project an extra year. Budgeting for the project has a story to it as well. Back in 2018, we did a preliminary planning level estimate of how much it would cost in order to do this project, and that estimate calculated out to about $370,000. In 2020, the CIP program was updated for the new construction costs that we were seeing in 2020, and we increased the budget to $605,000. Then in 2021, once we had the design finalized, plans ready to go, and we were getting ready to bid, we updated the engineer's estimate with up-to-date cost estimates and some additional costs that came up during the design process, and I'm going to talk about those in a little bit too. And so we increased the engineer's estimate to $874,000, almost $875,000. And in July, we opened the bids. In July, we put it out to bid and we opened the bids. Those bids, we got 4 of them, and they ranged from roughly $680 or $680,000 to $1,285,000. The initial apparent low bid was that $680,000, but after the bids were opened, we got contacted by the contractor. He said he had a math error in his bid, and ultimately he withdrew his bid. The next lowest bid was from ML Albright's at $1,208,190. So pretty big difference. So I'm going to talk a little bit go into a little bit of the design and talk about some of those additional costs that came up during the design process. This is a clip out of our sewer comp plan, and when the comp plan was done, the consultant that we hired kind of looked at some of the buildable area along the fringes of the city. And this is kind of the proposed layout that they put together for having a sewer line go out and service some of this area in that area of town. And you can see that they've got a creek crossing up here at the north, at the lift station, and a line kind of running down the highway with another line heading out into this area here. So when I went to do the design for this project, I wanted to make sure that what I was building over here along the highway was going to be sufficient to serve this stretch out into here. And what I found when I laid a preliminary profile out into this area was that if we wanted to serve that area with a gravity sewer line, we were going to have to be pretty deep along the highway here. And so I don't know if you can really kind of see how these contours go, but if you see up here on Paradise Ridge and kind of follow that down, you kind of see that there's a flat spot here, and then the sewer line, as the alignment of the sewer line goes and kind of drops down into a little bowl here. And this bowl is considerably lower than the ground that's up here, but if we want to serve that with gravity, we have to lower this line here. So obviously we then kind of looked at, is it appropriate to make the line deeper, or should we just plan on another lift station to serve that lower area in the future? And ultimately, there's a few things to consider. The upfront cost of building that line deeper, it was something to consider. I think it wound up costing us probably between about $100,000 to $200,000 more to build that deeper, which, depending on the size of the lift station, is somewhat comparable. But then if you look at the other aspects of having a lift station, where you have perpetual pump and motor maintenance, perpetual power costs, and you ultimately, when you put in a lift station, you wind up putting in two pipes. You wind up putting the gravity line that goes into the lift station and then the pressure line that comes out. So you have double the pipe that you have to build and maintain as well. And ultimately, we came to the conclusion that it would be in the best interest of the sewer system to just build the line deeper now before the highway project comes in. Another aspect of the project that got more expensive was when we initially scoped out the project at the planning level. We were going to extend the 12-inch main down to the edge of the highway project. We came up with that 12-inch main based on the comp plan that was done in 2012. That comp plan that did an analysis of the fire flows in the area didn't highlight that 12-inch main as a potential problem in the future, and so initially we just planned on extending that same 12-inch main. Since that comp plan was done, our water model has been updated quite a bit with new information that we've been collecting, both like changes to the infrastructure that we've found, where the old model had pipes in it that we later found to be abandoned. And probably a big one was there's a line that runs down Main Street, kind of down through downtown, that we thought was still active. And it turns out that main has actually been abandoned. And so all the flow that's kind of going south of town is going through one 12-inch main. So we updated the model. And then we also had to look at some new development that's coming into that southwest quadrant of town. And along with with the new development and the changes to the model, we decided to start doing some modeling specific to that southeast quadrant of town. And the consultant came back with a recommendation that we increase this pipe to a minimum of 14 inches. 14 inches isn't a very common pipe size, so we ended up having to expand it all the way up to 16 inches, which is considerably more expensive than a 12-inch pipe. So now that we've kind of gone over how we got to a project that kind of grew on us, we'll talk about the funding for it. The additional $501,000 that the sewer capital fund is going to have to bear it'll come out of the capital out of the main program. Sewer main program of the sewer capital fund. And then the additional $102,000 would come out of the $6.2 million water capital fund. So we do have the money to cover it if we choose to award this contract. And so our recommendation is that we accept the low bid from ML Albrights for $1,208,190.40. Or provide staff with further direction. And do we have any questions?
If I could just provide one clarification on the sewer fund funding. We have just a little over $13 million in capital fund reserve in the sewer fund. Much of it we have been accumulating for the anticipated upcoming Phase 5 project out at the water reuse and reclamation facility for the temperature standard. We are currently undergoing a facility study, and they're indicating that project, which will likely involve the installation of a chiller to reduce the temperature of our effluent, is probably closer to that 6 to 8 million, and we've been programming 12 million there. So the 1.8 million that Bob mentioned in the sewer fund is just in the sewer main program. We have kind of categorized out different uses of that reserve funding, so we have just about 13 million in total in capital fund reserve, so we do have a fairly hefty reserve. The water fund is at 6.2 million. That is, we also are sitting on approximately that 6.2 million is the total water capital reserve that we have. But again, it's only 102,000 of additional funding that we need for that side of the project. So I just want to clarify on the sewer fund, that 1.8 was not the entirety of the sewer capital reserve. It's closer to just over 13 million. It's just under the sewer main program.
Thank you. That was a good question. That was a question that we all had. At least I did. Any questions? Art?
Yeah. First off, very clever, Bob. You preempted my questions about the cost comparison between putting in a lift station and just going deeper. So, good job on that one.
Thank you.
Is groundwater going to be an issue going deeper? Are we going to get into a puddle down there and have to deal with that as part of this?
Water is going to be is going to be something we're going to have to fight with the construction in all sorts of ways. We have to cross the South Fork of the Palouse River. We've already applied for our 404 permit. We have been approved for that. The plan is, if we do award the contract, that'll be one of the first things that we try to get done, because we want to get that done during the end of August, early September, when flows are lowest, and we're going to be battling that the least. Even after we get out of that creek crossing area, that we're going to experience some groundwater. But in our specifications, we kind of address that, and the cost of that dewatering from groundwater is wrapped up in this price. So.
Okay. Yeah, other than the sheer sticker shock of it all, but, yeah, which seems to be more common than not. But, yeah, so do we know when ITD is planning to pull the trigger on their project?
So the most up-to-date update I've gotten is that they're going to start next construction season. They're going to start at the north end.
Around here, so do we have an idea of how we preserve the water that's kind of getting displaced?
So when we're talking about groundwater, it's enough water to disturb the construction practices, but it's not an awful lot of water. It's not like the same amount of water that you would see flowing down. It's like through Paradise Creek at the same time. So we would be pumping the water out of the ditch, and we'd have to find appropriate places for it. A lot of times, in an area like this, we'll find like a well-vegetated area and just pump a little bit of that water into a vegetated area where it's allowed to dissipate solids, dirt, mud, kind of filters out before it enters any water body or anything, and that would be the way that we would address it. It's especially if we are able to do it in August, mid-September, that water level drops quite a bit in those months, and so theoretically would be dealing with even less water, but it's a small amount of water. It's not like bypassing a creek or anything. So
You've chosen a good year for dewatering the soils.
yeah.
So,
Let me just ask you one other question. How long do those pipes last? This issue is if you're building those pipes through basic groundwater, so that, how long do they last before they can contaminate, any kind of sewer water could contaminate any groundwater?
So the PVC piping, I honestly, I think it's the new PVC piping. I think the jury's still kind of out on how long it can last. The great thing about PVC is it's really, it doesn't corrode, so it doesn't rust, it doesn't react with soil chemistry, any of that stuff. The most common thing that breaks it down is UV light, and being underground, it doesn't.
16
And so
feet
it's
doesn't do it.
the new PVC pipe is, I'm not exactly sure off the top of my head, but it's probably
Long time.
100 years.
Any other questions? Do we go on the consent, or does it go on the regular agenda?
with regrets about the price, yes, put it on consent.
Consent, I agree. Yeah, I
Okay.
agree. Consent. Thank you very much for your presentation and answering all our questions. Are there any reports from the staff?
None.
We adjourn.
All right.
Okay, thank you very much.